Hi there, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live premiere. I appreciate it. Today, what we're going to be talking about is the inevitable of Dylan Rounds searches eventually being halted once again. You may ask why? Because winter time is slowly approaching. And if we're speaking officially, whatever's going on in the background, whether it be directly by the LE, the family, K9 units, whoever volunteers, likely going to be halted. What about Lance Kelly? What about Ty Corbyn? Well, they may still continue, like last year, last winter. Although they might not have been as hands-on, the likes of Lance Kelly was still searching about. But we're talking officially today, right? Just a general discussion. It's an interesting one, and it's just reflecting back on how things happened last time and applying it now also for the future. Will we get the same outcome? Yes, no. Could it be a little bit different? Because at least for the summertime searches, it has definitely been different to how it was done last summer, where things all unfolded, right? I think that's the most interesting part. Summertime 2022, more hands-on, more people involved, more verbal and publicly talked about. Whereas this time round, summer of 2023, a lot quieter. You can add in the factor and argue, well, simply because of back in 2022, summertime, around the time of Dylan going missing, it was all very fresh and full on. I get that. But it's just interesting seeing how things change. So whilst we've seen the shift in action, focus, and levels, and whether it's public or not, that's changed. We talk about summertime searches. But what about wintertime searches? We saw it back in 2022, but what's going to happen this time round? Because weather itself can be unpredictable, right? At times, you don't know what to expect. Sometimes it can last longer than others. Wintertime did drag on back in 2022, did drag on over into early 2023. And some people were saying it was longer than anticipated. So are we going to see that again? Or could it be shorter this time? You know, we just discuss things at this moment in time because it hasn't fully come round yet. Could there be any shocks or surprises? I don't think so. Maybe more focus is on the court hearings with Brenner upcoming and what could come and follow after that. That if the searches were halted, maybe it's not as much of a big deal now because back in 2022 wintertime, Brenner wasn't charged with the murder or desecration of Dylan back then. So the focus was still, well, in the meantime, let's be searching for Dylan Rounds' remains. Whereas now, it's, well, Brenner's been charged with this and that. Still got to find the remains, but with the court hearings and stuff coming up, that's another important factor, and that's happening, that's following and coming soon, so more eyes will be on that. And that's why I'm talking about the topic today, away from the court case and hearings, because whilst that's important, the searches are as well. If there's no searches, then there's no chance of finding Dylan's remains, right? One question I want to throw out before we go any further, okay? And that is, as for anybody watching right now or afterwards, you can feel free to leave it in the live chat right now, or you can leave a comment down below, whichever you think's best for you. When wintertime does come about, and if and likely searches, official ones, are called off, halted, delayed because of the bad weather, it being very cold, the ground becoming rock solid, what would happen if all of a sudden during the court hearing, let's just say randomly, Brenner confessed, Brenner opened up, revealed the location of where Dylan was buried at? If all searches have been halted because of the bad weather, and yet if Brenner was willing to reveal the location unexpectedly, what would happen? Maybe we could do this as a poll. I've not done a proper poll for a while. I'll set it up in the background and you can feel free to vote. If you do want to elaborate, well, you can leave comments down below. I mean, I can't vote because I'm the channel owner, but if I had to vote on the spot, I would say, depending the conditions, if it's really, really bad, then maybe it's not possible. But if in 2023, January or early February that they were able to dig out the pond of Lucerne, clear the trees, dredge the pond and scrape it out, even though it was still winter time and it was a bit hard the ground. But force was used to gain access to search and double check things. I think there might be some exceptions even if the weather was bad, but the location was revealed as to where Dylan was. They might say, you know what, we've got to push through and focus on doing it right now. Is it a race against time? Well, would it be considered a race against time if Dylan's remains were explained, like revealed to where they are? That Brenner, he is where he is right now, but Dylan, likely not alive. Is there a time factor? If the remains are there, are they going to go anywhere in between, even if the winter time is present? During the winter time, is it going to impact those remains? Does anyone know? I do feel that if searches were to take place during winter time, brute force with exceptions, because they may have found the location, let's just say, it could be problematic, right? If the ground is hard and you've got to try and dig it up, I don't know, could it disturb the remains? Could it damage it slightly? Would the best course of action be, well, we've got the location, we don't touch it, and we wait until it warms up so the ground becomes easier to dig? But if that really did happen, that could open up its own problem, right? Well, depends if it was talked about publicly, right? If it was revealed publicly about Dylan's remains, but official searches or recovery missions did not take place at the time due to the inappropriate weather, the winter time approaching, could any people in the background, not so much vigilantes, but others out there, take matters into their own hand and rush the process, which could lead to remains being disturbed, damaged? I think if that did happen, that would cause a lot of backlash and quite a few more arguments and more drama and conflict for sure. Is anyone stupid enough to do it? I don't know. But let me know your thoughts down below at least. I mean, I don't think they would be talking or revealing it publicly, but I was just basing it on what happens if Brenner decided to confess in court and it was documented and recorded live, let's just say. Would it be revealed to the general public or not? I'm just thinking, because if it gets into the wrong hands, the information, and if you do have winter time, which prevents family, official groups, LE, volunteers from getting to that location, others in the background who may be dodgy, who may be tied to the case in some way or another, might take matters into their own hand and dig it up themselves to maybe hide it, move the remains elsewhere. I don't know. Is it like a treasure hunt? A race to the finish line? First person to get a hold of the remains for whatever reason, or to find them and then remove and place them elsewhere after? Well, it makes you think. All I want to say is, in addition, as a question, let's just say Brenner. Brenner was also the one responsible for the desecration as like the charge displayed. Brenner being officially charged with that part along with the murder. And if Brenner did bury and then rebury elsewhere afterwards, would that have been the final resting spot of Dylan Rounds? My question is to any of you watching right now, is there a small chance that whilst Brenner has been in Weber County Jail or in custody, however it's worded, whilst Brenner has been kind of locked away, has there been any other chances, possibilities that any other people out there walking free may have gone to that spot where Dylan was buried and may have disturbed it and did their own form of desecration? Do any of you agree with that, or do you just think that wherever Brenner and Don, or just Brenner, disposed of Dylan, that's it, not been moved ever since? Let me know your thoughts down below. 2 back-to-back polls. I might just have one as a poll and then the other one, just feel free to leave your thoughts down below. I'm just thinking of all this on the spot. This does time with the discussion of the weather. Maybe we can add on to this later on in the video, but one thing for sure, be sure to stick around to the end of this video, because besides the weather talk and searches possibly being called off in the future and that, what we're going to begin with today though, because we haven't even started yet, looking back at comments of the last video I did of this case to catch up, answer any questions, acknowledge any key information or key individuals that have popped on in, okay? And then maybe the incorporation of the maps possibly with one of the discussions. But what I do want to add in midway through this video, be sure to be on the lookout for it, and we're taking a look back at a previous article. I don't know how much of it. I think one full article and then an extract from a different article which did highlight a big contradiction by Candice Cooley. And yes, these articles are from the past, so some of the information will be or could be outdated. Let's just at least acknowledge that and be aware. But there's no harm in looking back. We've already done it before and people liked it, so we can do it again. As for others out there that don't approve of it, tough. We're looking at it. We're doing a range of stuff today. We're talking about the future of searches and also the past of how the case has been covered and the responses from the likes of Candice Cooley, etc. Okay? Before we go any further, also want to acknowledge big shout out to ZX0 for last night. ZX0, very good of them with their super chat, as well as gifted membership for 20 people. As for the gifted membership, I believe it's at random. It will be given to random people. There might be a chance that when there's been gifted memberships, if you click on it immediately, you might be given it, the membership, for free. I'm not quite sure. It's just because, I don't know, to be fair, it's kind of interesting because gifted membership can be given out to people who aren't currently watching my videos or not watching live. It's a little bit odd. Would it have been good if YouTube gave the option to select who you want to be gifted as a member? I guess it could be practical in some way, to be fair, but then at the same time, as for a just other viewer gifting them, how are they supposed to know who gets it and who doesn't? And then would it start leading to people whining? Oh, why did you not give me it? Why did you not give me that? I don't know. There are pros and cons, right? The pro is, it's first of all, it's very good of individuals to do what they do with the gifted memberships, and a few people have done it over time, mainly ZX0, Cut and Shoot at one point, very good of her. There are a couple of others, okay? I can't remember the names on the spot, but shout out to them who have done the gifted memberships. I guess the only con you could say is that if you've got bad people, you know, unsavory characters that just happen to randomly get gifted, allocated the membership, if you were to do membership only videos, then they've got full access to that. And then they could act as a spy and watch in, okay? But obviously with my channel, I'm not doing secret debriefings or anything like that in the background. No, like full on paywalls there, no. So I guess that problem doesn't exist here, so it's more positives than negatives, so that's good to see. As well, in general, last night, most people, you know, good engagement, good comments, and it's just fine. It's fine. There's nothing for me to complain about, really. I guess maybe one thing that could be acknowledged is there was a fake, well, I think a fake Fast Eddie account last night. Whatever that's about, it's just doing its rounds, just like accounts in the past. It is what it is. Fast Eddie, the real Eddie, did pop on in once, and that was about it. I mean, that was just to acknowledge that, you know, hey, that's not me. But then, would anyone have notified Eddie about it? Because, you know, sometimes you can be doing videos and then people do pop on in and you're not expecting them to show up. And that's probably more so because people who are currently watching then pass the message on to others that aren't watching. That's why, maybe more so with live streams, when conversations shift to a certain topic or individual, could be considered controversial. You could have viewers watching and then the odd one from elsewhere that then thinks, oh, that keyword, that key name was mentioned. I best contact them in the background about it. And then they get informed, and then they come on over and then make their presence clear. So that's kind of like how it works. Sometimes it can be a bit funny, other times a bit silly. It is what it is. But yeah, all in all, it went well last night. And, you know, the comments as well, there's engagement there. So that's the thing. That's all that's needed at times, and that's more than enough. And once again, shout out to, you know, all the people that do watch in the background, and especially those that do, you know, catch up afterwards, because I don't know personally, but I guess maybe the atmosphere is different when you're watching live. I mean, some videos out there could be a little bit boring. I don't know. Maybe the odd video in the past by me could have been a bit boring or dragged out, but in terms of the format at the time when it's actually live as a live premiere, it doesn't matter as much because you've got the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen, which can have its own form of entertainment, right? And to be fair, there've been times in the past, and it's just me being honest, times in the past where some live premieres, the actual live chat discussions from people watching, have been more entertaining and funny than my actual video. So that's the good thing with the live premiere. You got options. You can watch the video, you can focus, and if you're not too interested in that, at least you got the live chat. If you don't agree or you don't want to listen to the information or the thoughts and opinions by me and others in this video, you can at least share your thoughts and opinions about the case in the chat itself, by itself. If you don't like the chat, you just go on full screen and then you just watch this video. If you don't like this video but you prefer the chat, well, I think you can either do the chat pop-up box, which then fills the screen, or if not that, you just mute the video and then you got different options. That's the key thing, not just with my channel, but YouTube in general. There always are options: standard video, live stream, live premiere, etc., comments or no comments, whatever. So I just like acknowledging this along the way. It's like the thoughts that come to my mind on the spot, right? So with that all out the way, what we're going to do is look back first at the comments from last night, acknowledge the comments, see if there's anything of interest, allow people to join on into this live premiere, and then we can go from there. Let's head on over. So I'll just adjust the comments to the newest. Work our way up. Not as many this time round, so that might be good news to some people. I mean, when reflecting back at previous comments I've looked at, the video itself, portion of it, has been about 40 to 50 minutes long, and then pushing it over an hour. But you know, there's no harm in addressing the comments. So to begin with, we've got Cleo there with some of the new emojis. That one on the left does actually stand out clearer than anticipated, so that's all good. We've got Rob here. I don't know if Rob is a new viewer on my channel, but they did pop in last night. And they also made an appearance, unknowingly, in my video because they did leave a comment on the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page. And that's what I covered last night. So just as a heads up, for those that have joined or watching right now, feel free to check back, to my last video last night to catch up there on the new Dylan Rounds post and the timeline updates of interviews and articles reviewing a previous website which has been updated ever since. Make sure to check the video out. As well, for anyone else wondering, there are links down below in the pinned comment section if you wish to visit them too. So we just click on Rob's comment. Let's see what he's got to say. So Rob says, I asked on Facebook the other day if there were any updates on Dylan's case. Yes. Rob says, damn, I got scolded for it. We don't ask that in here. That's a quote. If there is anything new, it will be posted. This is a memorial page. Damn, sorry for asking. So what I'm going to do right now, because it is important to acknowledge the comment by Rob, but to also set the record straight, okay? I think Rob did misinterpret the response from Jazz Girlson, okay? So I'm just going to clear it up now. We can look at the replies. Do you know what? Should we look at the replies now, first of all? Yeah, let's look at the replies and see how people reacted to it. And then I'll explain it clearly to everybody watching right now. And you might be wondering, how would I know this? Well, as I said, last night in my own video, I went on the Facebook page, I saw Rob's comment, and I also saw Jazz Girlson's response, okay? So we'll get to that shortly. So June says, how strange. Who said that to you? And Rob says, a mod of the Facebook page, the official page for Dylan. Very rude. They are basically turning the page into how to grow sunflowers and remembering Dylan. What about the case? That's a good point there by Rob, of course. Bob, let's see what Bob says. Bob saying, that's really nice reply for them to make to your question. That's the problem with all of them. They don't tell us anything. 100,000 people are into this case, and one of their supporters answers you like that. Screw that person and the horse they rode in on. The only way we will all find out is when this case goes to court, sometime next year. Sorry to read that nasty comment by that person. Bob going on saying, that's the problem with mods. They think they are the kind of the world. Nasty person for sure. Who answered you? I have a few choice words for her, but I won't put them here. I will do that on my own page. Maybe we can check out Bob Farrell's page shortly in this video. But for Bob to say, that's the problem with mods. They think they are the kind of the world, that they're in power. Well, if you've got a negative outlook on mods in general, then why, Bob Farrell, do you have mods on your channel then? I can imagine that the mods you have on your channel, Bob, are considered by you as good people. But I don't know, it just seemed like a general statement you made here in this comment, right? I mean, with my channel, I don't have mods. I've never had mods. Dale did beg to be a mod at one point, but instead he was given a hard hat and a pair of Crocs, which is probably a better offer than being a mod, to be fair. Even Arkansas, when she came to my channel, she had to include the wrench next to her username to make it appear as if she is a mod. What a petty ass individual. And by the way, I'm being light-hearted there for the other people that don't understand my humour, okay? But my channel, I don't have mods, and I never have done, and I never will do. The only factor which may make me consider having mods if I had a live stream which had over 5,000 people watching and it got a little bit messy. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but if it did get out of hand like that in high numbers, then maybe a little bit of control is necessary. But all in all, as said, I feel that having mods on your channel can cause more problems than good. Some people appointed mod position, they can get power hungry and they can take matters into their own hands. They can block people based off their own biasness and falling outs with one another's. So then the channel owner, who might get on well with certain viewers, are no longer recognizable or viewable because they've been blocked by some mod you have appointed, which then leads to a backlash of others in the background complaining and questioning the channel owner as to what's happened. But the channel owner isn't always to blame. Sometimes it's the mods to blame, but it does revert back to the channel owner appointing those mods in that position in the first place. It's very messy. Do you want to get into that position, that mess? No. And as well, just in my channel, I feel like people can control themselves to whatever extent. You know, most people, fully grown adults, and, you know, even people of the younger age, they can still behave quite well as well. All in all, you know, just people do what they think needs to be done in the chat or say what needs to be said. And yeah, it's lasted this far. It's gone okay. And as said, last night and the night before, it's been pretty good. Good people present. No issues there. Anyway, there's quite a few comments here I do need to respond back to and add on, okay? So Rob says, right, it makes me mad because he is still missing Dylan. Dead, but a family should have closure and the body. That's the worst part, someone dying and you don't have the body. I've been following this from day one. Wow. Many YouTube channels, all the fraud, BS, gay this, gay that crap, and people searching everywhere for him, nothing. And now all the channels have been quiet except for Warlike Ref. So I appreciate that. I do appreciate Rob's comment there. The way he's typing, he's been, you know, straight to the point and being honest, which is good. And he's also acknowledged that my channel has still been active. So I appreciate that, Rob. Rob says, I was just curious if there was anything new. Damn, they were very rude. They're more focused on the sunflowers and his legacy now than finding that poor kid's body. Okay, rant over. Well, don't worry, Rob. I'm going to set the record a bit clearer shortly, and it might put things into perspective a little bit better, okay? And I think I'll probably use the screenshot from last night just to make it clearer. Christy says, there are no mods on Facebook. They are called admins. Most of the time, they create pages for the missing, not to find the missing, but to gather and write unnecessary and hypocritical comments to clear their conscience because they are annoyed with their life. This admin was probably the same that reached out to Warlight Raf, telling him what he can show in his videos and what not. They feel entitled to treat people with arrogance because they act like they are God. They don't give a shit about the missing. They only care about their egos. So don't worry, there are better ways to know news about Dylan. For example, Warlight Raf's channel without mods. So I appreciate that by Christy with the little shout out there. Christy, crisscross. I don't know why I say crisscross. Crisscross Christy. It's a bit of a tongue twister, that. So yeah, that's all nice there with the comments. So with that all being said, do I need to respond back to any individual ones before we talk about the main point here? Because it might as well be addressed. Okay, basically, so I guess the one bit what I will mention, so like with what Rob has said, and I think Bob. Rob and Bob? That's a good one. Rob and Bob. Anyway, so when it comes to the Dylan Rounds page right now, and it's been like this for the last few months, more so ever since Brenner was officially charged with the murder and desecration of Dylan Rounds. Past that point, past that last interview, not much has happened since. It's been quiet, okay? Not much information has come about. So whether you're talking about the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, which is supposedly the hub for all information and knowledge on the case, well, it's been very dry for quite some time. But equally, just in general, such as on YouTube and news reports and Google searches, it's been quiet as well for news on the case. The family and/or the LE, things going on in the background, have been more quieter this time round in 2023 compared to 2022. Okay, so such as on YouTube, during the times of silence, as of right now. Yes, I've been covering videos on the Dylan Rounds case, but I've been thinking outside of the box, filling in the blanks, filling in that silence whilst we wait for the new information. Because in between, we can always look back at other things and stuff we may have missed, the opportunity on, or I don't know, analysing, comparing from the past just to see if anything has changed since, right? There's always stuff that can be done during times of silence. So I think that's equally applicable to the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, although it's supposedly all about finding Dylan and solving the case. In the meantime, whilst you haven't had Justin Rounds or Candice Cooley posting as much, well, excluding yesterday, as said, all the times beforehand, really the only people that have been posting onto that page are members. Not family members, but just members on the page who have been posting tributes in the name of Dylan Rounds. Sunflowers because it represents Dylan and his farming. Other times people posting photos of going past a place which reminds them of Dylan Rounds. It's gone past that stage of trying to find Dylan who's missing to remembering Dylan in the meantime of his body trying to be recovered. So all people can do from now on, as for the general public, on that page is send tributes and prayers and all of that. You could say it's wishy-washy. You could argue and say, well, it doesn't really help the case. Technically, it doesn't help the case. It shows maybe a form of respect and acknowledgement towards Dylan and his life and maybe towards the family too. But it's not going to lead to Dylan being found. What can lead to Dylan being found or answers coming out is the likes of Rob on screen. Rob with the sunflower profile picture that was direct and said, are there any updates on this case? And he said that in a particular post. As for the answer, as Rob said, it came across as a bit rude and abrupt and no update given. Now, just to put things into perspective, first of all, there have been times in the past where I've come across other people asking questions about what's happened to the case, what's happened to Dylan, what's happened to Brenner. Is Brenner getting charged? Is Brenner getting the death penalty? What's going on? What, why, when? And that's been in the past. whether it be a separate post on the Facebook page or embedded within the comment section of a completely different post. And most of the time, there has been a response, and maybe more so positive in the past. So why would it be different this time with Rob? Well, to make things clearer, let's just refer back to that Facebook post where Rob asked the question, and this should make better sense. So I managed to get the screenshot from last night. As for everybody watching right now, feel free to focus because this is an important point to address just to clear things up, and hopefully this will help make sense to you, Rob. So I don't know if Rob wanted his last name covering up, but I just did that just out of respect for privacy. So just let me know down below anyway. But this is what Rob said at the time on the Facebook page on a particular post, saying, "Is there anything new on Dylan's case? It's been quiet and I just wish he was found." Now the question by Rob, there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't demanding. It was just a simple question. Now, Jazz Girlson, one of the main members on the Facebook page, I think the one that may have set it up, the admin, like what Christy referred to, and Jazz Girlson responded to Robert's question saying, if there was anything new to share, we would post it here in this group. Basically, if any news or new information comes on out, and it's allowed to be posted public and talked about, then it will be on this Facebook page. Though Jazz Girlson says this post is dedicated to remembering Dylan, not discussing the facts of the case. I hope you can understand. So she's trying to be clear, but maybe some people interpret it as being a bit rude. Do I interpret it as being rude? No, it's just can be straight to the point. So what does Jazz Girlson mean by this post? So in Robert's comment on YouTube, what we looked at before, it seemed like Robert internalized it as Jazz was saying to him, no updates about the case on this Facebook page. We don't talk about that here. And then Rob interpreted it as, oh, so you post pictures of sunflowers and all that farming stuff instead of trying to find Dylan Rounds. Wow, you got your priorities straight there. Well, that's false. That's incorrect. When Jazz Girlson says this post, she's talking about this post, and that's the comment section thread of this post. This post is a part has been posted on the page. The Dylan Rounds page is like a community which you can join, which you can comment on. A page is like a community screen where people can post different threads, photos, media, comments and questions, and then people can respond back to them in the comment section down below. This Facebook page is kind of like YouTube in a way, or you know what, let's be a bit more realistic. The Facebook page of Dylan is a little bit like a subreddit group on Reddit, where you got a little community or a big one, and it's a page dedicated to something of a certain topic and theme. People can post whatever, providing it follows the rules, and then people can respond and react and reply within the comment section threads, right? So when Jazz Girlson says here, this post being a simple remembrance for murder victims in general, because it was a special day, National Day of Remembrance for all out there missing and no longer alive with us to this day. So it was more of an occasional post. Do you like when you get the 2 minutes of silence if someone has passed away? It's like, now is not the time. We're focusing on something out of respect for a different reason. So basically, to make it clear, Rob, this question that what you asked, if you made a separate post on the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, a separate post, likely Jazz Girlson would have responded back saying, unfortunately, there are no updates at this moment in time, but if there are any, we will be posting them here on the page. Okay? So a post is different to a page. A post will appear on the page. The page allows people to post content on it. Okay? But on this occasion, this post being kind of sensitive with some people, hence why Jazz Gilson responded the way she did. Does that make more sense? And to respond back to Christy's comment, Christy is correct. It was Jazz Gilson who was the one that commented on one of my previous videos asking for me to blur out and censor other people's usernames when looking at Facebook itself, looking at the comments and everything. Jazz Gilson at the time was saying that because people reached out to her or something and didn't like that their names were displayed publicly in my videos, that they didn't like it. And to be honest, there was a few Salty Pancake viewers in the past that got triggered by it as well. I think it's when I went on Salty Pancake's public Facebook page in the past and some of his viewers. I don't know who it was. Was it Kathy Waters? Was it Eddie? Was it 28 Alice Days Later? It was some people out there that they didn't like what was being done. And, you know, some people have also got triggered from Bob Farrell's channel when I've looked at comments there on YouTube. All these people within this case get triggered when I look at their usernames, more so focus on their comments. They get triggered by it all. But you know one thing that does tie in line with everything? One thing that's all in common with all? And that's why it's all publicly viewable. Everything posted by all these people, publicly viewable. Everybody's usernames and full names or profile pictures, all publicly viewable. Okay? That's not my problem. That's their problem. If they are a bit touchy when it comes to privacy and sensitivity there, well, make your account private or just don't join a public Facebook group, because that's where it links back to that initial comment by Jazz Gilson. So I know Christy was talking about Jazz Gilson in a slightly negative way. Me personally, I've not had any negative run-ins with Jazz Gilson. She just made a simple request and that was all. She wasn't that demanding with the comment on my channel. She was just kind of like using it as a suggestion. Jazz Gilson said, if it's possible, if you could, then could you possibly blur out the names of these individuals on the Facebook page? So Jazz Gilson was polite at the time. There was no issue. But I did respond back then saying, well, the thing is, it's hard to blur out these names all over the place because what people don't understand, you can only blur out so much on a screen, right? But on top of that, if there's like multiple different names scattered all about and you're scrolling up and down, those blurring things or lines which cover up the names don't track. No motion tracking. So if I scroll up, those blurred lines remain, but the screen page goes up. So, you know, the names are then revealed. So it's kind of pointless. It just doesn't work. And then the only other point I made was the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, whether it's the names changed or not, the page is still public. It's a public page. Anybody can join it, okay? Anybody can view it. Yes, if you do want to leave an actual comment, you'll have to have an account, but it's publicly viewable and it's all public information. So there's no restrictions there. And I think maybe with the Salty Pancakes situation in the past where some of his fans and ex-fans were getting really triggered by it is because people were saying how, oh, well, if you cover it on Facebook or show this page or this profile, then all these bad people are then going to come after us or come over to our page. And it's like, well, firstly, no one's stopping all those people from coming on over in the first place. If people want to find you, they will find you regardless of a prompt or not. And in addition, if it's such a problem, then why do you have a public page? Just make it private and then it eliminates all problems once again. And the other thing, people were getting very touchy and sensitive at the time, and I think Stoney did as well when it comes to people's usernames and profile pictures on Facebook. Well, once again, people's bloody profile pictures were almost the bloody same as their YouTube channel, as well as usernames. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. It's obvious that people are going to stand out more than others, right? If you've got someone with the same profile picture and almost the same username on YouTube as you do with Facebook, you naturally, even if you don't say it out loud, are going to think, oh, it's that person. They're making themselves obvious and stand out, right? Others on YouTube will obviously have a random username and maybe a default profile picture. It's harder to tell who's who there, right? So it's just like these little pointers I want to throw back in and compare and contrast to what's happened in the past. But just to refer back to Jazz Girlson responding back to Rob's comment, basically, Rob, if you posted that question in a separate post and not a part of a comment thread to do with a different post, they likely would have responded back and it would have sounded less rude, okay? So as for that moment, it was just down to misinterpreting it or just interpreting it differently, okay? As for my experience with Jazz Girlson, she hasn't been rude to me, maybe just straight to the point. And sometimes maybe when some people are straight to the point, it can come off as a bit rude or abrupt. But yeah, the Find Dylan Rouse Facebook page is still about finding Dylan. It's just that there's not really been any news as of lately and even in the past, so not much has been posted. I mean, last night or so when I did cover it, there was like a new post by Candice Cooley or some comments there, which we did look at. So I've acknowledged it as well, Rob, that for quite some time it has just been sunflower photos, but really, as for the general public that are on that page, what else can they post? I mean, maybe more people could, members on that channel, more people could ask more questions and demand more, but would it get anywhere or could it cause more trouble? I don't know. Depends how you look at it, right? But hopefully that explains it a little bit clearer for some people out there. Let's head back on over to the other comments and catch up. Well, here we are back again. As said, we can also look at Bob Fowle's comment as well if there's time. Cleo here saying Warlike's examinations. Dr. F, I guess. I like that jigsaw puzzle. That jigsaw puzzle kind of matches the colour tone of that custom emoji as well. That's interesting, that. Anyway, Indiana. Oh, what does Indiana have to say here? Oh, I think we might have a poem. Everybody clasp your hands together. Hallelujah. Indiana says that Fuchs came out to play today, leaving us all on chat wishing he would go away. I thought we were all over this type of silly larking. Whoever that Fox Fust Eddie he is barking. Disrupting the chat that was about Dylan Rounds and folks that gather still hoping he'll be found. Funny is okay, but some of the comments were low. It doesn't make you the cleverest of today's show. There is something twisted, and what does it gain? And shows that prats like you are now but a pain. So here we go. We got Indiana coming in hard with the bars and the charts. Bar charts. So maybe someday Indiana will start rapping as well. That's always a possibility. So everybody in the comments, feel free to rate this poem by Indiana. Do you like it? Is it better than the last one? Let me know down below. As for that word, F-A-U-X, is that another word for fake? How do you call it? Fox, farks. I don't know how to say that word. I know it's used when describing leather. Forks, leather. No, don't worry, we're not going down the wrong route there, but you can get fake leather. But someone like Dale, I think Dale wants the real thing. Anyway, down below, Tom saying, perfect, the fast Eddie I know is respectful and wise. Totally unlike this goon. Well, Tom Evans, I think you might have to rethink yourself there where you said Fast Eddie is a respectful and wise individual. If the real Fast Eddie was a respectful, wise individual, then why can he be so problematic at times, having an answer for everything and, not always directly answering questions and expecting other people to know everything about the case, even including new people that come on in, and always making little digs here and there, either about me or others elsewhere in other people's live stream chats. I think you might need to look back at that, Tom Evans, because I have documented it over time. It's not that bad, it's not that major, but still, it's a niggling problem at times. It's unnecessary behaviour, right? Well, Indiana seems to agree. Christy, well done, my poetic friend. I'm sure after that comment that I made there, Fast Eddie will probably pop up in the chat with a degenerative millennial-like emoji, etc. But it is what it is, okay? As said, if I do call people out, it's just straight to the point. Try to be honest as possible, okay? Whether it's a person who's distant, far away, or someone who is closer up, I will highlight, actions at times, okay? That's what makes the channel balanced. Not everyone will like that, but, it's just one of those things, right? We got skeptical, good individual saying, yes, the 2 weeks are incorrect. Also, the boots were not on his property. So this is more in relation to last night's video discussions, as well as the that page of interviews and the way it was worded, okay, in case you're wondering. So yeah, the 2 weeks incorrect, that's what I thought as well. And yeah, boots not on his property, but more so on the Grangeshed property, which Dylan Rounds did not own. This person here, shout out to Trudy the Fox. Oh, Trudy the Fox. We've got a new wave of coming in. Okay, we've had the cats, meow, and now we got the fox. Okay, I don't know what a fox sounds like. I don't know. It's like ah. No, that's a crow. It's like wah, wah, wah. That's what the fox sounds like. But to be honest, I think that's when it's having fun with another fox. But it's the only sound I know. Anyway, that's off subject. So Trudy says the date of interview was the 9th of June. So he was missing for 2 weeks by then. Date of interview was 9th of June. But it's what was found before the 9th of June. Dylan was reported missing on the 30th of May. 2022, 30th of May to the 9th of June. Anyway, the family reported Dylan Rounds as missing on the 30th and supposedly found the boots on the 30th as well, all within the same day or so. So it wouldn't be 2 weeks, right? That's why we were correcting it last night. Skeptical says, what did Karen Rounds say about the last time she heard from Dylan on the documentary, the phone call or text message? What did she actually say? I can't remember. We'd have to look back at it, to be fair. You have to look back at the documentary, okay? Maybe you, I, or somebody else looks back at it. And then maybe quote it word for word or so, or roughly saying, in a comment, a response. It can be done. We'll look back at that, okay? I mean, the news articles and articles in general refer to it as a phone call as well, right? I don't know if it always applies, but take this into consideration, skeptical. Whilst we've had the divide when it comes to the community in general, that a certain set of people believe Brenner wasn't squatting, like the general public, but then the likes of Candice Cooley, the family, Justin Rounds, the news articles, the court documents, the police state that Brenner was squatting, and that the general public didn't believe in that they were getting it all wrong. And yet Corey came in and confirmed that Brenner was squatting, technically speaking. So there you go. I can't set the record straight, because Corey is an individual out there, aware of that land and somewhat control of it, so knows what's going on over there, right? So, like, when it comes to this situation with the call made yes or no, you got the likes of Bob Farrell, Corey, and the rest, as well as the general public, that are saying that Dylan Rounds did not call Karen Rounds. But then you've got the mother, Candice Cooley, and Karen Rounds, the grandmother, referring back to that phone call, that it was a phone call, but the news articles say it's a phone call. So if in the past, the general public, who were so hell-bent on the fact that Brenner was supposedly not squatting, but it turned out he actually was, so the general public were wrong back then, are they also wrong about this here, claiming that it was just a text message? You see the pattern? Just worth taking into mind. June says, did anybody watch Lance's video of the burnt out cars and trucks? It's the same place that we were speaking of, the scrapyard chop shop. but you put a question mark there. So there's a question mark in relation to, did anybody watch the video, or is that video really about the chop shop? Well, from June's comment, she uses 2 question marks, which implies 2 lots of questions. The first one being, did anybody watch Lance's video of the burned out cars abandoned in the desert? Well, I can respond back and say, yes, I briefly had a look at it. Is there anybody in the chat right now that watched it themselves? Let me know your thoughts down below. But then June says, it's the same place that we were speaking of. ... the scrapyard, chop shop, with a question mark. So June, are you confirming that it is in fact that location what we've looked at on the map and Lance Kelly has visited it recently? Or are you referring to the question of, is it really the same location? Because I'm not sure if I saw a comment somewhere in one of my previous videos where people were saying that it's not the same place. So if anyone can confirm it or explain it, feel free to do so down below. When I do get time, besides all the other videos and ideas, I will look back at Lance's video just to listen on into the details and if a location is given, okay? Glenn again, consistent Glenn. Glenn Webster. Ooh, any cobwebs? I don't know. Is that profile picture, Glenn, of like a ship, a boat in the water? It's a good profile picture, that. Anyway, we've reached the end of the comments here. I think it's, before we forget, let's just have a quick look at Bob Farrell's post as well, linking on from what he was going to say. Well, here we are. As you see on screen, we've got Bob's post here. Quite a long one, but I think it normally is. I think Bob gives the shack lady a run for her own money, or a run for some turkeys in between. Well, let's just see. So Bob says, I was reading Warlight Ref's page and watched his video, as I do most days. One of the mods that the Rounds family uses. As I said, it's not a mod, it's an admin on the Facebook page. Bob says, gave a nasty reply to someone his watches and wants to know what is going on. And this person answers him with a nasty comment. Up yours, lady. Stick it up your ass. Another moron on Facebook. What a joke. His mother going to this show in Florida, Crime Con. All she is about the money. Also, how much can she make? When is the book deal coming in? When is the big movie going to be? No matter what she does, she will never be the mother of the year in anyone's eyes. The day people will respect her and her ex-husband is the day they both start telling us the truth from their lies, or her lies. How's your daughter and son doing, Candice? When is the last time you had dinner with me? What? When Duty Run and his crew paid for you to take them out to dinner. Anytime you want to come on alive and talk with the American people, as people from all over the world, let me know. And don't use Doug Hutton. What the hell is the matter with you? He's another one who is most hated on the YouTube streets. The money he made on Dylan's name, and Tyler Feller, another name who made thousands of dollars. Yes, there are creators on YouTube who aren't the best in the world, but I am not one of them. Never was and never will be. I be one of them. Never, okay. Anyone is welcome to come on a stream and talk about Dylan's family, best friends, grandparents, but everyone is so quiet. The LDS rules your lives for sure. Well, probably LSD would as well. What a shame for us. The ones who care about this case, screw Kurt Wadsworth, him hiding in his bar. I know the warrant is only a minor thing, but I'm sure when this case comes to court, they'll be out there nights and days looking for him. They want his ass for this case, but no hurry for now. He's not going anywhere, but he's out of business bar and drug-infected town, booze, drugs, and other bits and bobs in Montello, Nevada. Now, just one thing to refer back to in the middle, what Bob said there, referring back to Tyler Feller. Bob said, Tyler Feller, another name who made thousands of dollars on the Dylan Rounds case. So basically, Bob calling out Tyler Feller for that. But if I'm correct in saying with Tyler Feller, and maybe no thanks too, whereas you, Bob, are highlighting that those two made a lot of money and milked the Dylan Rounds case. Just remember, it was partially because of Jim Terry and Mr. X. Because in the past, Jim Terry, Mr. X were constantly going on about it, saying with their presence, look how much more money was brought into their channel. Without Jim Terry, Mr. X, Doug and Tyler Feller were making less money on the case. that when Jim Terry and his group and followers joined into a live stream and did an interview with whoever on that channel, all of Jim Terry's followers would watch and give lots of super chats. So just remember that, Bob Farrell. While she might be calling out other YouTubers out there like Doug No Thanks and Tyler Fellow, just remember that whilst they may have made money, partially it's because of Jim Terry, Mr. X, more so Jim Terry presence back then, who appeared on those shows. So just at least highlight that, at least, just in general. Is there anything else to acknowledge here? The bit about GT1 and Candice Cooley, I didn't quite get that part. As I said, there's a lot of words here, to be fair. Still negativity towards Candice Cooley, but also questioning Justin Rounds, as Bob has done here. But once again, just to clear up, when it comes to Jazz Girlson, she wasn't being nasty. It wasn't a nasty comment. It was just very straight to the point, which comes off as abrupt and maybe rude. Okay? All Jazz Girlson was saying, Bob Farrell, was on that particular post, it wasn't directly about Dylan Rounds and updates. It was more about remembering the missing people out there, because it was a National Remembrance Day for missing people. That particular post was like a moment of respect for all those out there, not a moment for all the questioning and wording. The questioning and wording, wanting to know updates on the case, does belong on the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, but just not in that particular post. So that's all Jazz Girl was saying. So if Rob did a separate post, his own post with a comment thread, he likely would have got a response back and it wouldn't have come off as rude. Okay? Hopefully you understand that, Bob. That aside, I think it's now time we move on to that article, what I was talking about. So the title of this article reads, Dylan Rounds Missing. Utah deputies name squatter James Brenner as suspect following 19-year-old's disappearance, by Rachel Ann Rodriguez. Now, just what I want to say before we continue any further, this article, what we're looking at, as I said at the start of the video, it's an old one. So it is considered outdated, and the information, some of it presented, outdated, no longer applicable to the case. Though, I'm looking back at this article just to see if there was anything of interest, contradictions, stuff that might have been looked over, brushed aside, right? No harm in looking. So we got Dylan there. As I said, I got it in reader mode because when it wasn't, all the pop-ups and everything, it was a disaster. So it does say it was modified July 8th, 2022, so you can tell it is old still. So it says, there seems to be a breakthrough in Dylan Rounds' disappearance case as the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office, along with the FBI, announced a suspect 19-year-old from Utah went missing along the Utah-Nevada border around May 28th, 2022. Now, the thing is, as we know, it wasn't along the Utah-Nevada border. It was more so either back at Dylan's farm or more so at the grain shed property, right, which is away from the border. Anyway, it says police began entertaining the possibility of Rounds being a victim of a hate crime around mid-June. It's interesting that. And why did they use the word began entertaining the possibility? What's entertaining about it? Wouldn't it have been appropriate word to say police began suggesting the possibility of Rounds being a victim of hate crime around mid-June? I'll be honest with you, I've never really heard it worded as that by the officials or the police at a point in time, right? Okay, they said it was being treated as a homicide case and, things needed to be investigated, but a victim of a hate crime, is that really the case? Anyone right now watching, do you agree that Dylan Rounds was a victim of a hate crime? How could it be considered a hate crime? Is it to do with gender? No. Is it to do with ethnicity? No, because they're both white. Is it more to do with the age factor, ageism? Is it to do with the factor of jealousy? That a younger individual may be more successful, giving orders out about what to do and what not to do, telling and bossing Brenner around at times, that Brenner couldn't stand it? Well, Justin Rounds in the past acknowledged that Brenner was jealous of Dylan Rounds, so maybe just that. But then also the other factor of supposedly Dylan breaking the horse gate, which is located at the Grangehead property. So if Dylan was reversing his truck, the grain one, on the 28th into there and crashed into the gate, it might have triggered Brenner because of the whole horse situation in the past, and then got Brenner riled up like a horse almost and struck out in anger at the time. Candice Cooley for a long time has said that it wasn't planned, that Brenner snapped. And yet how it's worded here in the past article, that the police were assuming or suggesting that it was a hate crime. And, if it's a hate crime, it could be more premeditated, that you hate someone, so you take action, you plan it out. To begin hating, to think, to feel that you hate somebody, and then it leads to a direct action afterwards, would imply it wasn't on the spot, because normally when people hate somebody, it tends to be more than one day. It could be for weeks, months. Hatred towards someone or some group. It's not just all in the moment. Not quite. So that would rule out the snapping, the snap mentality. So for the police back then to feel that it might have been planned is interesting, because it's a big turnabout. You think about it, in the past, at the start, Candice Cooley believed that there was something seriously wrong, and Justin Rounds seemed to agree as well. But the police supposedly didn't take it serious enough and just assumed that Dylan went off somewhere and would have returned back a later day. But there was no need to worry. So there was a big split, a divide there, right? Fast forward onwards to around mid-June, which isn't that later on, because this is 2022 of June, okay? That then the police started considering that hate crime premeditated, but then Candice Cooley was like, no, it just was a snap moment. So always been a divide there. Anyway, moving on. It says, in a joint release issued, the police stated that James Brenner is now a suspect in the case. The 58-year-old suspect is currently being held at the Weber County Jail on federal firearm charges. Now, obviously, he's about 59 years of age now, approaching 60. The release states the current totality of information gathered from many interviews and searches, along with the analysis of both physical evidence and forensic data, has identified James Brenner as a suspect. Brenner is currently being held in Weber County Jail on unrelated federal firearm charges. No criminal charges have been filed specifically regarding Dylan at that time. In a joint press release, authorities announced that due to forensics, interviews and physical evidence, James Brenner is officially a suspect in the case of Dylan Rounds. So even back then, they had the forensics, they had an interview at least, and some form of physical evidence. Is that physical evidence to do with the phone? Well, Candice Cooley said that the police heard about the phone and the forensic dive into the digital aspect to get that clip, the incriminating time-lapse of Brenner in the trailer cleaning a gun, blood on him, and DNA from Dylan belonging on that shirt he was wearing at the time. Candice Cooley said the police only heard about that around November of 2022, but the family heard about it, I think, in 2023. So there was a big gap in between. So I don't know what exactly it's referring to here, as in back at the start, the evidence they had exactly, but enough to, treat Brenner as a suspect. As I said, this is in the past, but we'll just read it out. Okay, no press conference, none of that, but there was a press release. So there was a bit of communication back then. Date 7/7/2022, incident Dylan Rounds, missing person, criminal investigation update. During the course of this investigation, multiple persons have been interviewed by Box Eldershow's office, the FBI and other assisting agencies. Multiple arrests have been made for unrelated warrants and crimes that have been discovered during this process. So although the Dylan Rounds case was the main focus, it uncovered other operations. You say multiple arrests at the time. Well, who does that apply to? Brenner, in a way, on the unrelated charges. Chase Venstra at the time, unrelated firearm charges. Robert Aviles as well. Anybody else? And what does it mean by multiple? How many exactly? Well, it doesn't say a couple, does it? A couple is two. Multiple is more than two. So it's probably Robert Aviles as well. I can't think of any other names. If anyone else can fill it in, feel free to do so. It says, when Dylan Rounds was not located early on in a search effort, the investigation focused on the possibility of Dylan being a victim of a crime, a hate crime. The current totality of information gathered from the many interviews and searches, along with the analysis of both physical evidence and forensic data, has identified James Brenner as a suspect. Brenner is currently being held in Weber County Jail on unrelated federal firearm charges. No criminal charges have been filed specifically regarding the Dylan Rounds case. This investigation is not complete and remains active. Law enforcement investigators are continuing to work to locate Dylan and finances. At this time, no further information or comment related to this criminal investigation will be released. As we stated before, if you have any knowledge regarding circumstances, feel free to call up, etc. So regarding that press release, and it was by Chief Deputy Cade Palmer, and we've heard his name beforehand. He did a few in the future as well regarding to Candice Cooley. Now, if any of you did spot anything in here, feel free to list it down below. If there's any corrections you want to make or any levels of hypocrisy, contradictions made within this article, list it down below in the comment section. Candice Cooley says the missing person's mother has identified Brenner as an acquaintance with her son. Not a friend, not a family friend, but an acquaintance, and that's it. But there have been other articles over time which labelled Brenner being a family friend. Candice Cooley took offence to that and set the record straight afterwards. Now, could you say that if none of this ever happened, if Dylan Rounds was still alive to this day, could it be considered in the background that Brenner is a friend, a family friend? I mean, Don Hatley is considered a family friend under the likes of the grandparents because of the interactions in the past. And it was Don Hatley that introduced his friend Brenner to the family. So that's when Brenner started working for Dylan. So maybe at a point Brenner was a family friend, but Candice Cooley nowadays doesn't want to acknowledge that because of the feeling of shame and disappointment of what ended up happening, that it makes the family look worse if they accept that Brenner was once a family friend. I wonder. Does anyone else agree with that? List it down below. It says Dylan Rounds was last seen at a bar in Montello, Nevada, May 26, but also on the 27th as well, even though it doesn't mention it here, and was last heard from on Saturday, May 28th, when he called with a phone his grandma early in the morning at 6:51 a.m. It's believed that he was at his farm in Lucin at the time. Interesting. They say the call was made to the grandma at Dylan's farm at that time. But what we heard later on in the case by Candice Cooley, and there was interviews on East Idaho News, and Justin Rounds was present and did not contest to it, that Dylan Rounds made the call to the grandmother with his phone at 6:51 a.m. at the gate of the Grainshed property. So things did change over time. Anyway, it's like another title here, or a subheading. James Brenner is a suspect in the Dylan Rounds missing case. According to police records, Brenner is a friend and neighbour who lived near Dylan Rounds. FBI allegedly claimed that Brenner was squatting in a trailer on Rounds' property. It was here that deputies found the missing teenager's grain truck and boots. There's Dylan. I think we're near the end anyway. Brenner's past criminal record includes malicious shooting, malicious wounding, and 3 prior convictions for possession of a firearm. Court records state that the defendant has no work history, is unemployed, and has no verifiable residence. The records further claim that Brenner was trespassing and squatting on Rounds' property. What? Brenner was trespassing and squatting on Rounds' property? When? Because Dylan Rounds' property is not the grain shed. Dylan does not own the grain shed. Dylan has his own farm. So is this article saying that Brenner was trespassing on Dylan's farm? Or are they just getting it mixed up with just the grain shed property? According to a neighbour, shortly after Dylan Rounds' disappearance, Brenner had asked him to conceal 3 black powder guns, 22 rifle. That's Don Hatley, as we've seen. Family hoped for Dylan's safe return post his disappearance. Grieving mother, 19-year-old, spent the last 2 summers trying to build Dream Farm. Be 3 or 4 days without talking to him, and then he'd talk 5 days in a row. But he was always in contact with somebody, so when there was no contact at all, that's when it felt strange, and that's when it went down. Cooley is confident that his son will never run off without informing anyone. The kid was so dedicated, that farm was his life. You're talking about a kid who's got access to $60,000 for tractor parts and all kinds of stuff, and no money has been spent, nothing's been touched, nothing like that. Okay. And then at the bottom it says $100,000 reward, but as we know, that was withdrawn down the line, likely because it was getting nowhere, leading to no additional intel, so there's no point in it sitting about. So, that being said, I just want to refer back to an extract from a different article because I did notice a bit of contradiction. Here is the extract. It's just from another article. I think these articles, Christie did point out the odd one as well, which I had a brief look at. So I think this was more influenced from last night's video. So you go on Missing Person America and to do a Dylan Rounds, you'll find all the links to the different articles and news reports there. Okay. But I just wanted to get this screenshot because I know something that did stand out as well. As for anybody watching right now, joined late, welcome. Feel free, it's best advised to rewind back to the beginning to catch up on everything you may have missed, just to understand the full picture. But here it's going on about Cooley said she's confident that her family and volunteers will find her son's body. And in quotes, and this is by Candice Cooley. Candice Cooley said, "When the weather breaks and we can get out there, and if some sort of deal hasn't been cut and we're still facing trial, we will spend the whole summer out there finding our son, and we will find him," she said. So, this was mentioned early on, I believe, towards the end of 2022 or more so approaching 2023 or the early few months of 2023, because what this is response to is at the time of 2022 and coming into 2023 because of the winter time, which delayed searches. Official searches could no longer take place at the time because of the cold weather, the ground getting very hard, and obviously the concealment with all the snow out there and ice. It made it very tricky, not practical. People were getting stuck and stranded at times, like Scott Natal when he was still out there searching near Bald Eagle Mountain. It just wasn't an ideal time, so it had to be called off for the most part of it, officially speaking. And Candice Cooley was just very confident that once the weather improves, once summertime comes about again, we can finally get back out there and get on with stuff. Now, for most part of it, that probably rings true, right? Because supposedly they did go back out there, and supposedly they did get other resources in, ex-military supposedly, the K9 units as well, and whoever else in between. But one thing for certain, it was definitely quieter compared to last summer, as we said. Last summer, it was more vocal and verbal as to what was going on and what Candice Cooley was reporting back on. This time round, it's just been a bit quiet. Is that good? Well, some people could say it's good because they must be making progress, that the times where Candice Cooley was verbal, most verbal, was when things weren't going to plan or weren't taken serious enough. So maybe there is movement happening. But still, winter time this year is approaching, the end of the year. So could the winter prevent more searches and delay things once again? Well, that's probably likely. If winter time comes and it's cold and the ground's hard and it snows, well, yeah, it's inevitable that searches will be delayed. So this is Candice Cooley talking about the future going into summertime of 2023. And supposedly searches have taken place out there, but we've just not heard as much this time round, right? But the bit what I was referring to where a bit of a, contradiction where it's saying that besides the weather improving, that we can get out there. Candice Cooley said, and if some sort of deal hasn't been cut with Brenner, and we're still awaiting and facing the trial of Brenner and the outcome there. In between, we'll spend the whole summer trying to find our son. Now, back in March 2023, March the 3rd, when Brenner was charged with the murder of Dylan Rounds and the desecration, but shortly afterwards, when an interview did take place between Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, Nate Eaton, Candice Cooley referred back to saying previously, before that, or around the time, that Brenner said to his attorney that Brenner was willing to open up and reveal the location of Dylan Rounds' body. Now, did it ever turn into a proper offer or plea deal made? No. Candice Cooley did say, though, that they did turn down the offer. So I'm not quite sure if it was officially put in place and Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds had the final say in the matter, but One thing for sure, Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds did turn down the possible offer at least. So it never came to fruition. It never happened, right? And yet it just seems a bit hypocritical here how before that, Candice Cooley was saying how if there was never an offer, there was never any kind of deal made, then obviously we'd just continue on searching out there ourselves, blindsided. But just trying. Yet Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds did have an offer, did have a possible chance and opportunity, yet they turned it down. So it's kind of a bit hypocritical how it's mentioned here. If there's no deal, then we'll just get on with it. But then later they did supposedly get a deal, but they still denied it, turned it down and got on with it. Why make the case harder on yourself? So that's why I just wanted to highlight this right now. And it does kind of tie back in line with this whole conversation and talk about the weather and winter time. Almost speaking from the future, I did see a comment by Tom Evans asking, have the searches really been called off already? Well, the answer to that is, I'm not quite sure. Likely, if there are any searches going on or still ongoing, they're likely happening as we speak. But this video is talking about what's upcoming, what to expect in the next few months or weeks, whatever. Because there was a comment by Weezer, I think, or Badger, saying that in the mountains, the snow is gathering, it's coming, right? And sometimes winter can come on earlier than expected, or sometimes it might be a bit delayed and drags on. Whichever way, when it does eventually come, and it's cold, and it's hard, and I'm talking about the weather there and the ground, that it'll probably will delay searches. If it happened last year, then it likely will happen again, unless the wintertime doesn't last as long or it's just not as harsh. I don't know, but time will tell. And it's just one of those things where it is a roadblock. It does halt progression, right? But I think there might be some people around thinking, well, has any progression been made this summer? Honestly, I mean, it's probably too late to do a poll right now. I might even do it on my channel page. So once this video has ended, make sure to go onto my channel, go to the community tab section and feel free to vote away. The poll will be, in comparison to summertime 2022, the searches for Dylan Rounds, comparing that to 2023 summertime searches, which one has been more successful? Which one? Feel free to vote afterwards and go on over there to do that. It might be hard to say because it's easy to say 2023 appears unsuccessful because one, Dylan has not been found, and two, what other evidence has been found out there? Not much, to be honest. And thirdly, it's just not really been talked about publicly. Is that because there are important secret stuff going on in the background? Or is it just because nothing is happening, so there's nothing to talk about? It depends how you interpret it, right? At least in 2022, it was a bit more verbal and maybe a bit more hands-on and stuff. But then equally, maybe you naturally get a drop-off. In the early days of a case, it's going to be heated. It's going to be a hot topic. It's going to be talked about and covered more and more transparency. And then as time drags on, and the longer the case gets, is there as much to talk about? Maybe not. I guess it just depends how you look at it. But as I said, just feel free to vote away and let me know your thoughts. And in general, if you do have questions, you want to elaborate on any point, you want more space to speak and talk, well, the comment section is down below. And in addition, as I said, there are some additional links in the pinned comment section if you wish to view them, okay? So hopefully that makes it clear about the weather. I did say about going on the mats, but I don't think there's any really need to because we can visualize the possibilities. If we need to do another video next time, I can do that. I'm just conscious of the time and the storage on my phone, okay? I don't want it to overflow, right? But as for the next video, I probably do need to aim for a Kenny Veach one because there is something to cover, of course. I just need to be in the right mindset and I need to review it just to make sure I'm somewhat on point. It could even be just like a little introduction starter just to get things going there and warm up, we'll see. But I also think it's probably worth doing another Dylan Rounds video idea from Christy regarding one aspect, a focus in a certain area with particular few people. That could be done at some point, probably be a shorter one, but it would open up discussions in the comment section. So still to this day, there are things to cover, which is always good. There are moments of silence, but things can bounce back, so that's a positive. Hopefully, all in all, you enjoyed this video and you understood most of it. Appreciate those that have watched and those in the background. And yeah, thanks overall. I'll see you next time. For now, though, goodbye and good night. Back in 2022, you know, I can't even get the words out. Going into 2023,